So I really hate that I was right about this, but I was right about this. Donald Trump and his FDA chairman, Stephen Hahn, dramatically and irresponsibly overhyped and oversold their announcement about convalescent plasma as a coronavirus treatment. And Stephen Hahn is now admitting it. And of course, it really shouldn't surprise any of us because they've been overhyping everything all along, going all the way back to hydroxychloroquine months ago. Now, I told you when Donald Trump held this completely belligerent, unhinged event on Sunday, promoted on Saturday as a huge announcement about coronavirus treatment. The announcement was the FDA has issued an emergency use authorization for convalescent plasma. This was suspicious. Convalescent plasma is a procedure. It's a transfusion of plasma from people who have recovered from coronavirus. The idea being that transfusing their plasma into people suffering from the virus could be an effective treatment. Now, the reason that it was suspicious from the get-go was because there was nothing new about convalescent plasma. So Donald Trump making a big announcement and trying to pat himself on the back as if this is an achievement for him or for his administration, that didn't make sense. And that was where I started to think there's something a little bit fishy going on here. And if you've been following coronavirus for months the way we have, you would know that convalescent plasma transfusions have been a potential treatment for coronavirus for months around the world. I have relatives in Argentina who have coronavirus. And 6 weeks ago, the possibility of giving them a convalescent plasma transfusion if they became sicker was a possibility. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. And so really the announcement was the FDA is issuing an emergency use authorization. The announcement was not really, we now can do this thing called convalescent plasma transfusions. It was, we're going to change the infrastructure from being able to do the convalescent plasma within a randomized controlled trial to doing it under an emergency use authorization. And that did not seem like a particularly good idea for the reasons I told you on Sunday and on Monday, including that it may start to be given to patients who are less sick and don't actually need something because they would recover naturally. And there are risks, including lung injury and other potential problems with these convalescent plasma transfusions. Also, giving when you have an RCT, a randomized controlled trial, you're really zeroing out confounding factors to try to focus in on what was the effect of the convalescent plasma. And when you do an EUA and you start giving the treatment to more people, including people who were going to recover anyway, it can falsely or deceptively, incorrectly make the treatment seem more effective than it is. Okay, I told you all of that on Monday. Well, Stephen Hahn, the FDA's director, Stephen Hahn, has now conceded that, yes, it's true. He exaggerated the effectiveness of the treatment on Sunday. He doesn't even try to hide it. He tweeted at the end of a series of tweets, quote, "I have been criticized for remarks I made Sunday night about the benefits of convalescent plasma. The criticism is entirely justified. What I should have said better is that the data show a relative risk reduction and not an absolute risk reduction. This was totally obvious all along, and Trump's Sunday stunt was merely a stunt to try to take credit for something that, number one, has nothing to do with him whatsoever anyway, and number two, shock is not the miracle that they claim it is." Now, I guess, okay, let me do this. Hahn also went into some garbage math on Sunday. On Sunday, Hahn said the drug appears, or convalescent plasma treatment appears to lower mortality by 35%. So he said for every 100 people who get the virus, it saves 35 people. That's insane. Okay. Now, the reason I'm hesitating is the math is so stupid that I don't know if it's patronizing to even do this, but I think it's worth putting on the record. The death rate of coronavirus appears to be about 0.8% if you account for, all cases, not a case fatality rate, but a death rate. Let's call it 1%. What that means is that for every 100 people who get coronavirus, you would expect one to die, 1% death rate. So if convalescent plasma reduces mortality by 35%, if 1,000 people get the virus, you would expect that 10 would die, 1%, and convalescent plasma would potentially save 3 or 4 people, right? If it's 35%, it's 3.5 people per 1,000 that it would save based on a 1% mortality rate. Now, I want to be really clear. If that's true, that's important. That's significant. That's not nothing. Those numbers are shaky, and it's not clear that that's what it is. But the press release from the FDA containing these claims was clearly a propaganda document written by the White House. And when Hahn, maybe he misstated and said from every 100 people that get it, this saves 35. From every 100 people that get it, you only expect one to die. So how could it save 35 when you only expect one to die? The tragic thing is, and if people get why this math is garbage, I apologize for going through that. The tragic thing is that for many of us, maybe it's obvious, but so many people are still falling for this stuff. And that's the real tragedy here. You know, dexamethasone tested globally, available globally for months. Donald Trump takes credit for it as one of the therapeutics that his administration has moved forward. They haven't done a damn thing about it. Remdesivir, tested globally, available globally for months, part of randomized controlled trials all over the country. Trump tries to take credit if it's something that his administration did. Dozens of vaccines under development. Many aren't even American companies developing the vaccines. The vaccine that ends up being the vaccine might end up being from Oxford University in the UK. Trump takes credit in advance under his Operation Warp Speed. They are lying all the time. And what I fear is that it will work. I still continue to think it is very likely that we get an announcement about we've got a vaccine. It's good to go around October 15th. Won't be available right away. Not to many people. And Donald Trump will take credit and it'll shift 1 or 2% of the vote and that'll get him reelected. This fundamentally is going to be a situation that is dealt with by doctors and by public health in the United States and around the world. And it's going to be dealt with despite Donald Trump, not thanks to him. And Trump trying to claim heroic credit by saying we funded production of vaccine doses in advance. That's great. Multiple countries are doing that. Any sane leader would do that. It would be an injustice not to do that, to start producing vaccine doses in advance. Common tactic has nothing to do with Trump. Republicans and Trump are trying to create the illusion that their leadership has saved the day. In reality, there hasn't been leadership. And as far as having to walk back, the plasma stuff, the damage is already done. Way more people see the headline than see the correction. This is the MO of the Trump administration. You put out some hyperbole up front, people see it, they integrate it. Later, you correct it. Stephen Hahn says, I did oversell it a little bit. Very few people see it, and it's too late anyway. It's typical, it's a common strategy, and it's exactly what they're doing. One of our sponsors today is Hydrant, and they are giving my audience 25% off your first order. This has been a game changer for me. This is a refreshing electrolyte powder that you mix directly into your water to rehydrate your body because it is packed with the 4 essential electrolytes that your body needs the most. That's sodium, potassium, magnesium, and zinc. And because of how Hydrant is formulated, it's an efficient way of getting yourself rehydrated, and it tastes awesome. There's a variety of flavors. I have blood orange, which I love. You can also get grapefruit and lime. A lot of us don't even realize when we're dehydrated a lot of the time, and it's become a really great part of my daily routine. If I'm underhydrated, I'm affected physically, I'm affected mentally, and I think you never fully understand this until you use Hydrant for the first time. I get a great boost of energy when I'm properly hydrated, if I've been dehydrated. They also have a version with caffeine, which I love, if and when that's what I'm looking for. Everyone in my audience gets 25% off your first order when you go to drinkhydrant.com/Pakman or just enter the code Pakman at checkout. I've put the link right underneath this video.